So for anyone that's interested, I thought I'd quickly show off some of the projects that I used to make the demo files, just so you can kind of get an idea of how I set those up and what I did and the elements I made and how they all came together. You certainly don't have to watch this, of course, and I'd love to see if you got better ideas or cooler things or anything. I'd love to see what other people would do with the same techniques. So let me show you a few of the projects. Let's first go to that the electricity one. Let me go open, recent, electricity. So this is the electricity element. You can see it here on the canteen, and all it is a it's this electricity, I call it fractal electricity file set that I created, which I can show you, and I'm actually doubling it up. I've duplicated the file set down here, offset it by 40 frames. It's only 100 frames, and then flipped it in Y so that it will it kind of doubles up. So here, that's not the best frame, I guess, but here you can see, yeah, you can see exactly what's happening there. Kind of doubles up. One layer, I made the one layer and it wasn't enough, so I kind of just doubled it up. And that's all it is. And then I plug it into an emission. It's just black and white, and then you render that out as a black and white image, and then you can plus that over and do coloring and glows and stuff in compositing. So let's take a look at some more. That was that element. Very simple. There's the smoke element. Let's take a look at that. Again, nothing crazy. I've got a sometimes I still right click. I've still got a domain. I thought I had baked it. It is baked. I don't know why it's acting all funky here, but it is baked. So I don't know why. I don't know what happened. Maybe I moved a file or something. But anyway, this is yeah, look, it's acting all weird. Anyway, this is the smoke settings. Of course, I'll give you this project. You can see all the smoke settings and all that if you want for both of them. As a note, I should let you know that I did give the object itself just a diffuse black material so that when it does render, rather than hiding it, if you hide it, you're going to see the smoke behind it as well. If you don't hide it, if you just make it black, you can still screen or add the smoke over your composite, and it will leave a cutout where that bottle actually is. So you'll have different smoke in front and behind it, and a little thinner directly in front of it because it's in there blocking it. So something to keep in mind. You could also set it as a holdout, I suppose. It's probably a little trickier to set up than just a black thing, but then you wouldn't have to use a plus or a screen mode. You could simply drop it over with the alpha and all that, and it'd be great. So let's take a look at some more. I think that was really it for the electricity. Those are the only two elements I think I made other than his face thing. But we'll cover that in a second. The other one, the burning, where it's kind of sizzling away and sparks are coming off and stuff, I use the same smoke, but let me show you the burn mat I created. This is that. So, oh, this is the mat. Hold on, let me find the actual burn element. Let's see. Where's the actual burn? Sizzle is what it is. There you go. So here's that. Again, same thing, just an emission shader on a black canteen. But what it is it's kind of like this sizzly noise pattern that kind of expands out. They kind of grow and burn and blend with each other and stuff like that. And what that is, let me walk you through exactly what that is, actually. So I've got just the regular mapping nodes to tweak anything I wanted. I've got a noise texture here, and it is a static noise texture. It's not animated. What is animated, however, are these color ramps. The color ramps are crushing it down, and if you watch as I scroll through here, you'll see both of those color ramps are animated, kind of the same. And what they're doing is they're starting out where it's very dim, and you only get a few white spots. It's very dark. And then as it goes, they grow less, and it becomes, less dark, more bright. And this other one, the second one, is the exact same thing, just a little smaller. It's a little just a little bit behind this one. And what that allows you to do is to subtract one from the other, which will give you a sort of outline of that kind of growing burn pattern, which you then colorize with a color ramp. And then I even tweaked it a bit more, made it a bit brighter. And then I multiplied it with another noise texture, just a really small, crunchy noise texture. You can see I contrasted it up a lot right there. And then I take this and I multiply it with that, which kind of gives just more detail, kind of texture, something in there. And again, that one's not moving, that's not animating. So that burn pattern should move through it, which is fine, and gives it just a slightly more detailed look. And then again, I just rendered that out on black, and you can add and plus screen, whatever it over. So let's take a look at something else. Going back to that burn matte, that is the same setup, except I'm just rendering this first color ramp directly. And what that gives you, I'm just rendering just that, not not the cutout part, just this. And what that does is it gives me a matte an alpha channel that I can then use. I wanted everywhere that the burn went, I wanted it to be a little darker on the bottle or on the canteen. So I had this matte that I could darken it a tiny bit if I wanted. So that's all that is. And then I've got some sparks, but I'm not going to bother opening them. I wasn't very happy with them. I left them in, but they're not the best. But I'll include them here for download if you want them. And then I've got a couple face things. I've got some, let's open those up. Take a look at those. Here's the first one. If I go to camera, where's my camera? And I set this to, there you go. So you can see exactly what that is. It's just a, nothing crazy. Just, I was going to do like a makeup, almost like a Joker or something, like a smeared kind of grotesque sort of makeup. And then I was looking at these blood elements that I had, which you can see here what the actual map looks like. And I was looking at these blood elements, and I was just thinking, like, that'd be cool. What would that look like? He's just got blood splattered all over his face, and they kind of ended up looking a bit more like, almost like birthmarks or something. But it's still kind of a little bit sinister, and you don't know what it is. So I kind of dug it, and I just ran with it. So that was one thing on his face. And then the other thing I did on his face was these stitches. Well, I called them stitches. They actually ended up being more like scars, which you can see here, right? So they're just kind of bloody gashes. They're not even that bloody. They're kind of more muscle. And you can see what those are. Oh, that's my actual painting. The way I made those, the way I made this was I painted on the face. I had the face, I gave it a new texture, and I painted right on, texture painting in Blender where I wanted the scars to be. Then I took that map into Paint Program, and I painted over it, touched it up, got rid of that layer, and created this one. And then I brought it back in with an alpha channel as a PNG and applied it, and that gives me these perfect scars, which look great, and that's fun. And then I also did, just as something extra, because it looked really clean on there, I did sort of a redness around his, around his eyes. Let me show you what that looks like real quick. It's just kind of blotchiness, and I just kind of put that over at a real light opacity in compositing to just kind of make it look not bruised, but if you had a big gash across your face, there might be some redness and bruising and stuff around it. It's not going to be perfectly clean right next to it. So I just made something a little bit more damaging. And those are all the elements I rendered out. So we can take a look now at some of the compositing that I did. I also did a matte. I ran just a matte. I just gave it a solid white material and rendered it out against black, and that gives you a matte to have for the object, which comes in useful in many ways. So let's take a look at the compositing of the electricity right here. A little bit of it's not that big. It looks complex, but it's not all that big of a deal. So I've got my footage here, right? And I've got it, this is color corrected a bit. Oh, come on, how do I do? There we go. I took the original footage that we did all the tracking and working on, and I color corrected it and added in some like kind of misty smoke elements. Just tried to make it look a bit more cinematic, a bit more like all these superhero TV shows like Gotham and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that kind of stuff. Gave it that whole kind of blue look, some darkening and all that. So then I worked off of that file. So I brought in my, let's go to an earlier frame. We can see something. There we go, Canteen. And here we've got the scars. Face scars go on first. And I'm colorizing them, blurring them a little bit, and alphaing them over. And another thing I did is, which you can see here at the end actually, is I'm using a matte. I pulled the red channel and I'm crushing it down and turning that into a matte for where the scar goes, because I didn't want the scar to go over his eyeball and his I mean, technically his eyebrow wouldn't be there, right? It'd be scar tissue, but I just wanted to cut it off all the darker things just to be fast about it. And then I'm doing another, I'm taking the matte of that scar and I'm putting a color, I'm multiplying a color over the footage, just to kind of give a little extra, kind of blending it with the footage. And then I'm actually putting that over top of the that scar, and it just gives it a little bit of extra, a little extra color, a little bit of darker kind of thing. So that's all. Just some tweaking around I was doing. Probably not necessary. What else? And then there's that blotchiness I was telling you about, the kind of, all that, which could probably be blurred a little bit more, but whatever. It works out all right. And that just helps tie it more into his face, like I should have smeared it off a bit more in the edges, but whatever, it works. And next we've got the electricity. So let's go back down to an earlier frame. So I've got the electricity right here. I've got a whole bunch of mats I created. I went into rotoscoping and I did a whole bunch of mats, right? So let's see. So there's an arm mat. I've got a couple duplicates in here because I was combining some and all that to kind of use it for different parts of the, like the electricity needed a different mat from the smoke. So I was combining and moving things around a bit. So there might be some duplicates. But this one holds the fingers off of everywhere that his hand is touching it, because you want to cut out the electricity, that kind of stuff. What else? Arms. Let's see, where's that arm at? That's the foreground hand and arm. This is the foreground forearm. Probably could have named these all better. Foreground hand again, blah, 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 whatever. Torso for the sparks to go behind and some of the smoke. And that's what all that is. And you'll find they're not perfect. I only wrote it where I needed, and I cheated a lot. I didn't spend a whole ton of time on it. But anyway, you'll see there's that mat, that finger mat. And I'm taking the electricity mat and cutting those fingers out, and that's a terrible frame probably to show it on, but if maybe here, you can see a little bit where it's cutting out the fingers because you don't want it to go over. So then I'm taking this image here of the electricity, blurring it a tiny bit. I'm blurring it 3 times. I'm blurring it 3 times, coloring it, and then plussing it over, adding it at different factors, just to get different looks. So this is building the glow, basically, is what's happening. So a tight blur, kind of a medium blur, and then a really wide blur, which I'm actually brightening up a tiny bit as well. Then I'm adding some color to these, which I may have tweaked. They may be the same, but I can't remember. I may have tweaked them a little bit too. This one I think I even made a bit more saturated because it wasn't coming through. And you can see what those look like. There's the first one. It looks dim right now, but by the time the other 2 are over, that's where it starts getting quite a bit brighter, and then it starts looking like glow, right? So yeah, you can see the influence of all those things. You can just turn off each one if you want. And, that's the kind of thing that's all up to personal taste, or if you're working on a TV show, they've usually developed some kind of look, how they kind of like their glows and things to look. So that's all that is. And then I've got the smoke, right? The smoke, which you can see that object in there. It's got some really hard edges, which is going to make an issue. Sometimes those edges, especially if it's like motion blurred or something, those edges are going to look, they're going to stand out. They're going to look kind of funky. So what I colored the smoke a bit just to tie it into that whole blue-green world. And then I took a matte, and what I did with this matte is, this is the object matte, the canteen, and I made an edge matte from it and blurred that a little bit, and now I'm using that as a matte to blur the smoke, to kind of get rid of this harsh edge, just so it blends in better and it won't be as noticeable. And then I've got a whole bunch of matte stuff going into the smoke, different parts of the smoke. So, you know, I don't know where, come on, show me, where's the arm, where's the hands, where's all that stuff he does before he throws it. Here we go. So yeah, you can see that's where the smoke is not appearing. And that's it. And that's what went into it. And, you know, here's a good example. You can see if I turned off that blurred edge on the smoke, you can kind of see how hard that edge shows up. I should even have this thumb being kind of held out there. So it's not, it was all quick and dirty, but the blurring of that edge helps a lot. And that's it for this one. And for the other one, I don't think it's all that much different. The compositing of the burning, I think it's all pretty much kind of the same thing. I got the footage. I've got the burn. Oh, that's his face stuff, right? His face. The face. I'm not doing that multiply with the footage and then put it back over thing. I'm just kind of slapping it over with a. I've got a matte, slapping it over there. It's holding off the darkest parts, but I tweaked it a bit from the other shot. And I'm also, I think I'm turning down. Am I turning down the redness at all? Maybe not. But yeah, I was pretty happy with how that one was looking, just kind of dropping it over. So I gave it a little bit of softening. Oh, I did tweak the color a tiny bit. Oh, I'm animating it even. That's great. Animating the saturation of it. So, you know, if we turn that off, that's funky. Never mind. Don't do that. It's because this didn't come out as totally white for some reason. I got to work on that. No big deal, though. What else do I got? I've got the hand. There's that's the holdout, the burn. The burn, as the sizzling happens, the darker, I was telling you, like it gets a little darker, which I can show you right there. There you go. So you can see exactly what's happened. So everywhere that burn has already happened, it's much darker. And then we're going into the burn element. And I did something a little different here. I've got the burn element. I'm tweaking the colors a bit. I'm using, I created a glow node. It's not perfect yet, but I'm going to throw it out there with this anyway, in case you want to mess around with it. I created a glow node to do that setup I did in the other shot with 3 different glows, different intensities, different values of blur, like how tight they are, how wide of a glow it is. I kind of made that. So you plug in your element that you want to go over. It's going to add it over by default, but you can always, of course, just go in here and switch all these to screen if you want to screen, but add is typically what you'd use for glow. There's a place to plug in a holdout mask if you want. This is the general, if you have no glows on, if it's just set to 0, this is just how much it's being added over, the factor of how much it's just literally being, the element itself is being added over, and then you can soften it a tiny bit if you want. And then you start adding your glows. I've got 3 glows here, a blur of 10, 25, and 35. All of them are over at 50%. And then on that last one, I've got a little bit of a gamma boost, which I believe works the opposite way, right? I think it's like, if it goes down, I think if this goes to like 0.2, it should get brighter, right? Yeah, so I kind of want to tweak that and make it so up, you know, higher values to make it go brighter, which I have to invert the gamma node or something. So that's why it's not perfect yet, but I'll let it go in this just for the heck of it. These are the sparks, I believe, right? Sparks somewhere. Did I somewhere? I don't know. I thought these were sparks, right? There they are. Sparks. Same thing, coloring them a bit. That's plugging in the holdout mask and then the glow on them. And then the smoke again, which is literally the same thing on the smoke. Same setup, and that's it. That's what went into all the compositing for these shots. Let me show you how I made that electricity element. If you remember in the electricity element here, I've got a file sequence, a frame sequence that I've put on this object. I made that in Natron, which I have open right here, so I can show you the project. And you can do this in Blender, you can do this in any other program, After Effects, Nuke, whatever you got. But I just chose Natron because we are all about open source here. So first I made this noise. It's real stretched. You can see it's just really stretched out. The size is like 5,000 in X and 30 in Y. So I just wanted lines, and then I animated them in X so that they're moving side to side, right? So if I graded that down by crushing it a lot, this is what you get. You get these nice little darts, these little, it almost looks like TV static or something, like an element. Then I created another noise that's more of just a regular, it's not stretched out, it's more of just a regular fractal noise. I didn't even change anything on it. I think it is animated. It's animated in Z or something like that, just so it changes and churns a bit. And then I'm using that second noise to distort the first one. So you can see what that does is it just kind of scrunches them up. And of course you can dial that in however you like. If you want like 200, you don't want it as much. You can go lower. So that's totally your preference. I noticed it was pulling it in. It was when it scrunched it in, it kind of pulled it in. So I'm just kind of putting that back and then cropping it off and then rendering that out as a file set, 100 frames of it. And that's it. That was how I made that. Again, you could probably do this in Blender or any other program you want. I just did it in Natron. So that's everything that went into the compositing for these. If you have any questions, if you'd like me to cover something in a bit more detail, shoot me an email on the contact me page or leave me a message somewhere. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.